Maybe yes, I think better. Come closer. Uh, Thank you so much. This afternoon, we're supposed to spend some time talking about what Bhutan is doing in terms of um, its environmental conservation policies and practices. As you know, Bhutan is a small little country up in the Himalayas, uh, 300 kilometers east west, 150 kilometers north south, as big as this. This is Bhutan, north of India, south of China, small country in the Himalayas, under 1 million people, actually 750,000 people. You can imagine how small the country is in terms of demography as well as geography. But we have been blessed with all the gifts of Mother Nature. Bhutan is supposed to be one of the 10 biodiversity hotspots in the world. It's home to some of the most rare species of animals and birds, and of course, plants, flowers. The country is rich in terms of forest resources. The constitution of the Kingdom of Bhutan stipulates that there must be at least a 60% forest cover at all times. It has to be so in perpetuity. At the moment, it is close to 70%. That is the forest cover that we have. So this is a transgenerational commitment, and the Bhutanese citizens are supposed to be the custodians of our natural environment. And nature or the environment is not something out there for people to use up as an economic quantity or economic resource. We revere the objects of nature. So for Bhutan and the Bhutanese people, every mountain, every valley, every tree, a rock, a mountain pass, the soil, the plants, all these are the homes of gods and goddesses, spirits. So we respect these presences of nature. And we also believe that if we respect Mother Nature and the objects of Mother Nature will protect us. So it is more of a reverential relationship between us, the humans, and Mother Nature. We do not allow our high mountains to be climbed. They are the sacred abode of the gods and goddesses. So, even though geographically, in terms of space, it is small, but the per capita density of flora and fauna is very rich. And at this point in time, Bhutan's forests can absorb 6 times more carbon dioxide than they emit. So that's one of the reasons why Bhutan is one of the very few countries in the world which is carbon negative. And we have made a commitment to ourselves and to the succeeding generations of our Bhutanese people to remain at least carbon neutral for all times to come. At this point in time, we are carbon negative. We can absorb more carbon dioxide than we can emit or we emit. So, Bhutan is that way blessed by Mother Nature with some of the most rare species of life forms. We have another blessing that is very sacred to us. Bhutan is a deeply, deeply spiritual country. Some of the oldest spiritual traditions of Bhutan, of the world, of humanity, flourish in Bhutan. The second Buddha, Guru Rinpoche, we call in Bhutan, Guru Padma Sambhava, visited Bhutan in the 8th century AD and brought the message of the Buddha to Bhutan. And since then, Buddhism has been our state religion. It's a deeply, deeply spiritual country. The political head of the country is the king, His Majesty the King. We have a parliamentary constitutional monarchy at the moment. Till 2007, we had an absolute monarchical system, but there was a transition to democracy, also decreed by the king. And at the moment, we have a parliamentary form of a democracy where the king is the constitutional head, the symbol of the country, and the day-to-day running of the country is done by the prime minister with his cabinet and, of course, the bureaucrats. So, deeply religious country. The country is almost like a temple. Objects of spirituality, religion, all over the country. I don't know if you have been to Bhutan, but when and if you come, you'll be able to see prayer banners spanning valleys, mountains, and every little rock is supposed to be an abode of the gods. So this is the second very important element that is important in terms of Bhutan's conservation policies. And Buddhism respects nature, respects all forms of life. So respect for life, including plant life, animal life, bird life, insects, life in the sea, on land, in the air, and everywhere in between. Life is precious. Life is sacred. So this helps in forming the Bhutanese psyche that naturally protects nature and the environments. The third very important element is the institution of monarchy. Our kings have been champions of Mother Nature, friends of Mother Nature, advocates of the integrity of plants and animals that make Bhutan their homes. And the fourth king, who actually ushered in democracy after abdicating the throne. We didn't want the king to abdicate. He was doing so well. We wanted him to continue. But at the young age of 51, the king decided that he would abdicate and usher in democracy. And perhaps this may be a very rare case in the world, in monarchical traditions of the world, where a king in whose hands all the powers are in fact vested, deciding to institute a system called democracy. So the, the institution of monarchy has been instrumental in securing not only the well-being of the people and the country, but they have also been great friends and protectors of Mother Nature. So that's why when the drafting of the Constitution was happening, the fourth king, who had actually decreed transition from absolute monarchy to constitutional democracy, also stipulated that 60% of the country should always remain under forest cover. See. So these have been three of the very important instruments in guiding our environmental policies. The country, deeply religious country, and the seat of Vajrayana Buddhism, introduced by the second Buddha, Guru Rinpoche, and of course the institution of monarchies and our successive kings have each been great custodians and advocates of environmental integrity. So that makes things so much easier. And I believe that all countries would have these blessings. The names may be different, but for example, Malaysia, how rich in terms of its natural endowments and the genius of the various races who make this country their home. And of course, the people, hardworking, very creative, industrious. So you may have your own jewels, your own inspirations to guide environmental conservation, protection of Mother Nature, and everything else that is precious for the country and its people. Uh, After this, there should be some, yes, script. It should be the same slide. Sorry about it. So, yeah, should go. No, there should be something more after this. Or maybe is there another different slide? There should be many. There should be many slides. That is only half. No, I think um, as I was saying earlier on, the transgenerational protection of the environment, natural environment, is actually ensured by these three sacred elements: the country, the spiritual tradition, and the institution of monarchy. I thought I'll. Can it, is it coming on? The others were just some text. So the first very important policy decision that Bhutan has taken is, in fact, stipulating in the constitution that 60% of the country should always remain under forest cover. And as you know, Bhutan's ultimate development goal or vision is called gross national happiness. Every country has its own North Star. As you know, long ago, before today's precision equipment were invented, sailors and mariners, lost on the wide open seas, looked at the North Star and found their direction to the safety of the port. Today, everything is available in the mobile phone, so people may not look at the North Star. But we believe that all the more reason today to look at the North Star. Every man, woman, and child needs a dream. In the same way, every nation needs its own North Star, its own dream, its own goals. And for Bhutan, the big North Star is gross national happiness. And gross national happiness is founded on four pillars. And one of the very important pillars is conservation of the natural environment. Conservation of the natural environment. So it is a transgenerational commitment of the people. So, have you got it? So, it is a commitment that we have. This is different. So, as per the Constitution, 60% of the country must remain under forest cover, as well as one of the four important pillars of gross national happiness is conservation of the natural environment. And Bhutan actually has a policy whereby 51% of the country is declared as protected areas. Protected areas with biological corridors for animals. 51% of the country is declared as protected areas. 60% of the country under forest cover, 51% declared as protected areas. And as far as industrial sites are concerned, they have all got to be licensed. They have to obtain an environmental clearance to establish any business, especially manufacturing and industrial businesses. So all of them have to obtain an environmental clearance to start their business. And large sections of the local community have also their own community forests. Community forests. And our people are very possessive of their community forests. So they do not allow others to poach or take liberties with their community forests. We have also what is called Bhutan for Life Fund. A Bhutan for Life Fund that actually is supposed to help us protect our flora and fauna. And we have made a commitment to raise at least $40 million over the next 15 years to take care of our natural resources, to take care of our parks, our nature reserves, our protected areas. And of course, we take our environment, in fact, as something that belongs not only to the present generation, but to succeeding generations. And as far as education itself is concerned, we feel that every generation of Bhutanese must be the custodians So in 2009, we introduced a big educational reform initiative called Nurturing Green Schools for Green Bhutans. So our schools or education being a part of the big national reform initiative, being a part of the big national dream, gross national happiness, we thought that since our schools, colleges, and universities have the largest number and the most precious segment of the population in our schools, colleges, and universities, and since they're going to be our future leaders, they must be able to embrace in advance the country's big vision of gross national happiness. So, in 2009, we introduced a big program called Educating for Gross National Happiness, through which we wanted to infuse the ideas of gross national happiness, including protection of our natural environment, into the overall operation of the education system. And gross national happiness, as you would know, has four elements. The first element, the first pillar is ensuring balanced and equitable socio-economic development. The second pillar, as I mentioned, is protection of the natural environment. The third one is conserving, in fact, promoting our ancient culture and heritage. The fourth one is promotion of good governance. So, among these four pillars, protection of the environment is extremely important. And in COP 2015, we made a commitment to ourselves to remain a carbon neutral country for all times to come. So these are some of the important initiatives that we have taken. Our school children, in fact, also look after the streams. They look after our communities. They, in fact, become custodians of our streams. They feel that the streams need to be protected. The local temples and community forests need to be protected as well. So school children are involved, citizens are involved, the government is involved. His Majesty the King himself is a great champion of Mother Nature, our plants, animals. 2nd June is celebrated as the Social Forestry Day in the country. Social Forestry Day. And during the Social Forestry Day, all the citizens plant a sapling each. And of course, in the recent past, His Majesty the King has initiated a program called A Million Fruit Trees. A Million Fruit Trees program. So saplings are distributed to different households. So we see that already in the first edition of the Million Fruit Trees project, about 90% of the saplings have survived and they're already fruiting. So the second edition of the Million Fruit Trees is underway now. So for Bhutan, conservation of the natural environment is an all-nation, all-state program. It is not just for the government or for the forest department, but it is a whole nation citizens program. That's why we feel that at least for the foreseeable future, we will be able to receive the blessings of Mother Nature, our environmental wealth, and that we will be proud of what we have achieved so far. So this actually is what we have committed to ourselves, to our citizens, and to our country. And perhaps over a period of time, we should be able to continue greening our country. The forest cover has been increasing, in fact, regularly and constantly. So at the moment, even though there's a slight decrease in the overall forest cover, it was 70% a few years ago. It has come down to 69.7, but the tree count has become more. So you have more trees now and more plants, more saplings. So that's why we feel that our pledge to remain a carbon neutral country and hopefully a carbon negative country will continue being so for the long runs. It's an intergenerational commitment to ourselves and to the Bhutanese people. I think if these are basically some of the things that policy decisions that we've taken and some of the practices that we have. And under these different policy instruments, regulations, we hope that we'll be able to continue looking after our natural environment. If there's some questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you. I put down some of these so if there's some questions, please. I think I don't know how much time we have. They're supposed to be over. Yeah, we're supposed to be over by now, but I think we have to wait. I'm sure some of you have been working with the government of Bhutan and you know a lot about what the country is doing. I met several people here who have been to Bhutan and been working with Bhutan. So thank you so much. Yes, please.
Could I ask?
Sir.
I need before I ask a question, I need to give a little background. Number one, I've never had the privilege of visiting Bhutan.
You have to come soon, sir.
I will indeed. And I'm 70, so that's another good reason.
No, soon. People are traveling there in their
100
80s,
years old.
90s. Yes.
Okay, I can wait 20 years.
Yes.
Another thing is I'm a biologist, so of course I tend to see things as a biologist. Not that I don't like people, but I'm a very much a biologist. Another rather naughty thing to say is I'm always somewhat skeptical of good stories. So with that background, I'd just like your personal view of the future of the trees and the forests.
Yeah.
So you gave some interesting information, a minimum of 60% land cover in the Constitution, now 69 to 70. And if anything, maybe slightly increasing because the program of planting fruit trees.
Yeah.
How, you may or may not want to answer this, but how do you see in the longer term, maybe leaving aside climate change, are there sort of issues that would tend to reduce the amount, maybe for wood production or incentives to plant more for carbon sequestration? Or do you see a sort of a longer term future for that sort of 69, 70% forest or tree cover?
In the foreseeable future, I feel I'm very hopeful and very confident that the forest cover will keep growing because there is a citizen involvement or citizens' involvement, and large tracts of land are already covered under community forests, and social forestry program is very active. And in fact, a couple of years ago, we entered the Guinness Book of World Records for planting the largest number of saplings in 1 hour. So now maybe the Philippines may have taken over, but we have been doing very well in terms of forestation, reforestation, and at least in my view, our trees will stand. New saplings in millions are growing. So there is a greater consciousness amongst our people. And even if for constructions people have to obtain a license to fell trees, and the forest guard goes and marks the trees to be felled. So I feel that in the long run, this commitment, supported by our constitutional stipulations and, of course, our deep spiritual values, will continue supporting us in our quest for conservation of our environment. So, if there is any other? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, hi. My name is Valerie, and we are from Victory Recovery, a scheduled waste management company. First of all, I want to say congratulations because I think Bhutan is recognized as one of the happiest country in the world. Secondly, I just want to know, how do you balance your industrial growth and consumption or GDP growth in the country while you balance the other side of your material footprint?
Yes, thank you. This is a question I keep getting very regularly. Um, Bhutan's long-term vision can be expressed in terms of this analogy. If I could present an analogy, there is the figure of the monk reading the holy scriptures, and his food is being cooked in the corner by laser beams. I don't know if you can get this analogy, meaning that we would like to retain some of the best things of our tradition and at the same time bring in some of the best practices in terms of scientific inventions, innovations, experiments, entrepreneurship. So we are not opposed to progress or growth when we say that we're very proud of our culture, tradition, and heritage. As a matter of fact, when His Majesty the Fourth King announced that for Bhutan there would be a new development path, the king was very young, 16 going on 17. His father, the third king, having passed away, far away from home in Nairobi, Kenya. So overnight, a young prince had to assume the responsibility of running the country. So he was looking around to see as to what models the country would follow. And in the early 70s, Bhutan was far less developed than it is now. See. We're still a developing country, but that time, those years, early 70s, Bhutan was far less developed than what it is now. However, the king felt that the conventional development model called GDP, gross domestic product, would not be adequate for Bhutan. Because GDP, as you know, is unidimensional, highly utilitarian, and reductionistic. And such a model does not tell the whole story of development. It tells only a part of the story. It tells the physical story. It tells the material, economic story. But life is more than materials. It is more than economics. Life is various. It is complex. It is subtle. It is beautiful. So all these subtleties, multiple layers of life, are not captured by GDP. So if you want to get a more reliable picture of development or societal progress, you have to take into account more variables, more factors than mere GDP or economic development or economic resources, material resources. So he thought that Bhutan's development pathway ought to be broader based. It must be founded on more variables. And he called this new path to development gross national happiness. Gross national happiness. As I said earlier, this is something like our North Star. We follow this North Star in our policy making, in our planning, in our resource mobilization, resource allocation, and monitoring of progress against key results areas based on the principles of gross national happiness. So if we had gone the same way as many of our neighbors have gone, by now perhaps Bhutan may have been materially more advanced, economically far ahead, but we would have lost a lot of things that are very dear to us. Our integrity as a nation, our heritage, our worldview, and our culture, our natural environment. It is so easy to increase GDP. You can cut down all the trees, mine all the oceans, use up all the resources. Overnight, you can double, triple, quadruple, quintuple your resource, your revenue, your incomes, your GDPs. But the consequences of such an exploitative development path would be disastrous. There would be nothing left for succeeding generations. So as difficult as it was to forego the economic benefits that might have come from using our natural resources, our kings, in their wisdom, thought that we can develop ourselves economically and materially gradually and slowly. We must retain, preserve these very important, precious treasures, the gifts of nature. And to this day, we have been following that very mindful path. If we had given in to the temptation to follow the GDP path, by now, a lot of the good things that we have may not have remained. That's why we try to balance the needs of the body with the yearnings of the soul. It's difficult. Following the GDP path is fairly simple, so easy. You don't have to be very mindful. You can close your eyes and increase your GDP. You don't bother about what happens to the environment, to the water bodies, to the soil, to the air, to the plants, to the animals, to the birds, to human life. The GDP doesn't care, see. As long as an object, a material, has economic values, it brings in revenue, see. But that kind of exploitative, rapacious development path will be disastrous. And today, when you look around the world, we are complaining about global warming. We complain about climate change. But who brought all this about? See? Human beings. The so-called Homo sapiens, thinking beings, rational beings, the most highly evolved of all the species. We were supposed to do better. See? We should have taken care of the soil, the air, the water, the plants. The state of the world would have been different today, see. But this single-minded, headlong rush to pander to the greed of us human beings has led to the disaster that we see today. We were hearing yesterday the rising of sea levels. Some nations might disappear underwater after some time, see. The melting of snow, see. We call the big mountains covered with snow Himalayas. Allah is home, see. Him is snow, see. Home of snow, see. But snow is melting very fast. And we might no longer call them the Himalayas, see. Home of snow, see. Desertification, see. Mass movements of people, migration, see. Inequities around the world. This is because of the worship of mammon, see. The worship of GDP, see. And even to this day, even though we complain about climate change and global warming, people are still continuing that cycle of production and consumption. This unlimited cycle of production and consumption is leading the way to disaster. See. That's why a young prince, 16 going on 17, thought that the conventional model of development would not be sustainable. See, today we are talking about sustainability. See, but sustainability also involves a lot of restraint, moderation, thoughtfulness, and mindfulness. So it is not easy to balance economic development with environmental conservation. However, there is no other path. And we, as small as we are as a country, as limited as we are in so many respects, however, we feel that we have a commitment to ourselves. And we also feel that we have a commitment to the global community that believes that Bhutan may be following the right path. And in 2011, the United Nations General Assembly adopted Bhutan's proposal to make pursuit of happiness as a universal human goal. See. And all the 193 countries participating then, without a dissenting voice, endorsed that proposal. That's why 20th of March every year is celebrated as the International Happiness Day. See. So happiness is something, gross national happiness is something, environmental conservation and sustainability begin with all these steps. Political leaders, state heads have to have the courage. It has to be a nationwide approach. That's why we're very grateful to our visionary kings for showing the ways. Sorry, it's a long answer to a short question. Sorry.
Okay,
I don't know
so
if we have time for any other question.
from the participants, one more question.
Okay, one more question. If there's no question, perhaps I will. Will there be a question? If there's no question, sorry.
So any other questions from the participants?
Here, when we engage in our discussions, deliberations about climate change, arising from global warming, I think we need to do a lot of soul searching. Soul searching. What is my role as an individual? What do I do? What can my family do as an individual family? What can my community do? What can my society do? What can my nation do? So, addressing global warming, I believe, has to begin with all of us. As I am, so is my environment. As I am, so is my family. As I am, so is my nation. See. As my nation is, so will the world be. See. That's why I think it takes some humility. It takes some moderation. It takes some faith. There's so much of cynicism in the world today. So much of cynicism. Nothing is possible. Everybody's going the wrong way. So why not? Why don't we also go after them? See. I think that will lead us to a consequence that we would not like. See. That's why I remember this old couplet from this novel, The Pilgrim's Progress, written by John Bunyan many years ago, 17th century. There are two lines. It is better to go the right way, even though it is better to go the right way, even though it is difficult, than wrong, which, though easy, where the end is woe. The GDP way may be easy, but the end may be woe. The GNH way may be difficult. However, we feel that the end will be the right end. That's why for our children and their children beyond, for our nations, I think it's important to moderate our wants as long as our basic needs are served. this beautiful Mother Nature has enough for all of us, as the great Mahatma Gandhi of India would say. This exploitative, greedy impulse has led us here. Are we going to follow the same way, continue following the same way, or are we prepared to make a change? So I think all of us can do our bit to advance the goal of humanity, secure a better future for our children, and also reclaim, allow Mother Nature to reclaim her roles, to heal herself, to heal the broken relationships, to heal itself, and also lead us towards the right path. So to all of you once again, thank you so much for your participation. And sorry we had some hiccups with the system here. This is technology. See. We have to believe in our humanity, see. And we'll find a way. See. Thank you so much indeed, and all the very best.
Thank you, Prof.